Welcome back. Today we're going to create our first web page. Now, before we do that, we need to talk about the document object model. When the browser requests a web page, the server will send back the data for that web page neatly packed up in the document object model. The DOM is the data representation of the objects that make up our page. So, for instance, like our headings, our images, all the things that make up our web page are going to be part of that DOM. And as you can see, it also creates a logical tree with, many things inside of other things. Now, looking at our root element here inside of our document, it's going to be HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, which is the most basic building block of the web. It defines the meaning and structure of our web content. And the basic building block of HTML, well, that is the element. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's talk about the word markup in hypertext markup language. Now, a markup language is just a system of encoding text with symbols to control the structure, formatting, and how the parts are related. As we can see in our text below here, we have some text that we've marked up as a heading, and we have some text that we've marked up as a paragraph, and they both reside inside of our body element. Now we look at the output in the browser, the heading element is going to be a lot larger and bolder than, say, our paragraph element. And they say this font size can be attributed to the styling. So our CSS, we can see the styling for this one's going to be larger. Now, we didn't actually set any of these values. So if we don't set any values for an element, well, the browser is going to use a set of defaults particular to that browser. Now, don't worry, when we get to CSS, we'll be able to set the styling exactly to whatever we want it to be. Now, we also mentioned with a markup language, it can affect how parts are related. Now, the H1 heading is going to tell us what the main point is of that web page. So anything like a paragraph is going to be something supporting of whatever that main point is. So if a search engine is looking at our website, well, they're going to know, this is more to the main point of things than, say, this paragraph over here. To determine where an element begins and where it ends, we're going to use tags. Now, we have two different types of tags. We have our container tags, which are going to have a tag at the beginning and at the end, and they're going to contain either some text or possibly some other HTML elements. The other type of tag is our self-closing tag or our void element, which doesn't have any contents inside it. One thing to be aware of, you may hear tags and elements be used interchangeably. Just remember that tags are just one part of the element, so they are not the same thing. As we mentioned previously, a container tag has an opening tag, some content, and a closing tag. Pay special attention to the /. If you forget this, the tag won't actually close. Just a simple little mistake that every programmer makes at some point. A good example of the self-closing tag would be the HR element, short for horizontal rule. As you can see, it doesn't contain anything, but it does output a horizontal rule line to the browser, which can be used to separate, say, sections of a document. A node is part of the DOM tree, and it's used to get access to every component. If you take a look at the DOM tree, every single branch is going to end with a node. So this is a node, and even attributes are a node. So even though our text here for our title element is not an element, it's still a node, so we can still change it using the DOM. Just a little bit more terminology that we have to cover as we go forward. The word document object model has the word object in it because the DOM is an object-oriented representation of the page. So what exactly is an object? Well, an object has data and code. So it has data in its data fields and it has code in its methods. So in short, the DOM holds data and has methods to interact with that data. The DOM can be seen as an interface that we're going to use to make our websites more interactive by changing their structure, their style, or their content. So in our example here, we could use JavaScript to interact with the DOM to change an element. We could change the text of our heading element to "Greetings, Traveler." Or, for instance, we could remove an element completely should we want to. Or we could add an extra element. These are all possible with the DOM, being that not only does it hold this data, but it has these methods that we're going to utilize to change this document object model and thus our web page to how we see fit. All right, let's write some code. So for our first web page, we don't need some fancy editor. And to prove that, I'm just going to use the simplest editor I have, which is Notepad. So go ahead and open up Notepad. And since we want to use HTML, let's go ahead and create our opening HTML tag and our closing HTML tag. Paying attention to make sure we have our / to make sure that this tag closes. We're going to go ahead and create an H1 element, and the contents of this is going to be hello world. And again, we got to make sure we have our closing tag. We're going to go up here to save as. And one thing to be careful of is we want to save this as an HTML file, not a text file. So I'm going to go down here and click all files. And then I'm going to go ahead and label this first page is going to be the name of my file. And I'm going to give it the .html extension. So that way, when the browser gets this, it knows it is an HTML file. If we do not do this, we're just going to see the markup in the browser when we pull up in the browser. But since this is a .html file, we should just see hello world as an H1 element. So let's go ahead and go over to our browser, and depending on wherever you have it saved, just go ahead and put in the where you have it saved at, and then hit enter. All right, there we go. Hello world. As we can see, that is an H1 element. And if we want to take a closer look, let's go ahead and go down to more tools, and we're going to open up developer tools. I'm sorry, I move that over so people can see it. More tools, and then down to developer tools, and you can see whatever your browser's shortcut should have it listed there as well. So we'll click on that. And as you can see here, here's our H1 element, hello world, and of course our HTML tags. Now notice that we didn't put in the head element or the body element, but it is necessary. So the browser knows enough that it can infer, and it can go ahead and put those in for us. But this is not best practice. This is just so that you are aware that it wasn't the text editor that added these in. This is the browser adding these in, and it's just not good practice to have it making a lot of inferences and putting things in for you. There's other things that it does, but it's better to be real explicit and tell it exactly what we want from it. In our next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and create a more fleshed out web page. So hang around. I'd like to see you in that one. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps, and it is greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.